Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our second day of our gridCONNEXT 2020 event. We had a tremendous day yesterday, lots of very interesting speakers and topics were covered. Today, we're focusing a little bit more on how technology is affecting the changes going on across the grid. And you'll see that throughout the agenda today. We have a very full agenda again today. We hope you can participate in most, if not all, of the sessions. And as you heard yesterday, a lot of our talk focuses on what's going on here in the United States. But certainly similar changes are happening all over the world, and in particular in Europe, where in some ways they may be ahead of us in some of the changes that are happening to how the grid is built and operated. We're really happy this morning to be joined by Marianne Laigneau. Marianne is currently the chairman of the management boards of Enedis. She's one of the leaders of what's happening in France in the utility sector and with regard to the grid. And she's going to spend the next 30 minutes talking to us about what some of those changes are and how they're impacting her business in France. Ms. Laigneau, thank you very much. Marianne.
Thank you, Stephen. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and honorable speaker, I'm really very honored to be taking part in this opening keynote from Paris, where it's evening already, and I would like to thank Stephen, also the CEO of GridWise, for this big opportunity. This timing and co-location between Paris and the US is very relevant because you have a new elected president who will favor the reintegration of your country into the Paris Agreement. My name is Marianne Laigneau, as Steve said, and I chair Think Smart Grid, which is an association which gathers all the French smart grid members of our sector, and we are also a member of a GCS Global Smart Energy Federation, like GridWise Alliance is. I'm also the CEO of Enedis, which is the main French DSO and amongst the top 3 of DSOs in Europe. As a company, we are a founder member of Think Smart Grids Association. So today I will try to give you a broad picture about the key role that smart grid sector will take in order to contribute to the economy recovery, let's say in the post-COVID area, from an European but also from a French perspective. Next slide, please. Thank you. So first, let me give you a general idea about our French smart grids industry. You can see the numbers on the slide. They are big numbers. Today, the French electrical industry as a whole represents 600,000 jobs, including half jobs in the electricity system, meaning, of course, generation, transport, distribution, and supply. And out of these numbers, the smart grid sector in itself, it says, strictly speaking, represents more than 20,000 direct jobs, and it's growing very fastly year after year. Since 2016, our association, Think Smart Grid, and federates and represents the French smart grid ecosystem. We have almost 100 of active members, startup, major groups, research laboratories, universities, professional association, and of course, competitive clusters. We are present on the entire smart grids value chain, research and innovation, electronic engineering, utilities, automation, power equipment, information system, digital services, business models, training and regulation. So it's a very holistic association and system. You may know that this high diversity of stakeholders with high quality of expertise allows us to be present in each link of the value chain, as well as the diversity of the types of structure involved. In fact, smart grids sector in France combines two types of approach. An industrial one, a global approach with an aim to export our French smart grids expertise abroad, but also a very local approach, being able to tackle issues specific to each community. And this double model, it's very rich and it creates a lot of value for our customers. We have accumulated a lot of return and experience coming from more than 100 French and European demonstrators covering a large area of uses and business cases, including also a lot of experience coming from the rollout of smart grid solutions, meaning AMM, Advanced Smart Metering Management Systems. Altogether, more than 30 million meters are deployed in France, and I will comment on that a bit later on. Next slide, please. So, next slide. Enedis is one of the main European powers DSOs, and we are a founder member of this association. So I will not go through in details through these slides. You have all the numbers and figures representing Enedis, just having in mind that we have 37 million clients all across France, and with an EBITDA of 4 billion euros of EBITDA, and almost the same amount of investment each year. As you know, France is an open market, so with a bit less than 80 power different suppliers. So a very open market, and a huge role for the huge part played by the DSO in that ecosystem. I will comment a bit later on. We have connected almost 30 gigawatts of renewables, because in France, let's say 90% of renewables installations and generation sites are connected to the grid distribution and not to the transportation network. So it's key to have that in mind, and it's growing very, very fast. It's what we call the ecological transition. Next slide, please. If I come now and focus a bit more on our context, of course, it's both a European context and a French context, but the context is the same. It's how we will lead the ecological transition through decarbonization of economy, thanks to electricity, thanks to increasing the uses and the business cases of electricity, which leads to a greater part for the distribution grid. Of course, you know the very ambitious target led by the Paris Agreement a few years ago. You have the European targets on the slides and also the French target. They are very consistent together and also very ambitious. You can see the figures, a cut at least of 40% in greenhouse gas emission. For France, renewables will have to represent around 40% of electric power generation in less than 10 years, which means also a lot of development for electric vehicles, and EV will be at the heart of that transition. So these figures are very impressive, and they create a huge momentum for electricity and for the grid. If we translate these goals in, let's say, political goals into operational and economical targets for the power sector, what does it mean? Next slide, please. What we are really convinced within Think Smart Grid Association and within Enedis is that power grids are really at the heart of ecological transition. And let's concentrate a bit on the French business case. You can see Enedis' vision for 2035 on the right side of the slide. It's a virtuous cycle coming from more renewables to EV, which involves more charging points, of course, and you can see the figures. Also, a great development for self-consumption. Self-consumption is key in the European and French development, because people, they want to produce locally, they want to consume local electricity, green electricity, and that creates, let's say, a local circle of involving more local community. And these people, these customers, they are ready to pay a bit more to have access to that kind of local circle of self-generation and self-consumption. And of course, it implies new development for the grids and new solutions provided to our customers. This relies also on more flexibility, 6 gigawatts of flexibility. This is almost the consumption of a city like Paris. And of course, this will be based on the use of more data and more IA in order to be able to elaborate new solutions for customers based on this new and considerable amount of data. So really, the grid is at the heart of ecological transition, a key role to integrate new renewable capacity, new electrical uses to the power system. It means also innovation and technology and research and development. Next slides, please. So what does it mean to have this kind of situation in let's say, I don't know if we are in a post-COVID situation or in a COVID crisis situation, but let's concentrate, let's focus on the recovery plans that Europe and France has put together on the table, and they are very consistent again. They are targeting a greener economy and recovery through let's say the energy transition. You see the consistency between these two plans. They are focused mainly on the transport sector, on renovation, thermal renovation of buildings, and on energy and green technologies. And it is very interesting to see, let's say, the European passion for hydrogen, of course, for clean hydrogen, green hydrogen, which represents these days only 5% of all the amount of hydrogen generated through the world. But we have to bet on green hydrogen going to industrial maturity in the coming years. So very consistent plans, very ambitious plans. You can see the figures, a lot of billions euros dedicated to this green recovery. So what is again the room for power grid in that recovery plans? Next slide, please. That's where our association, TIC Smart Grid, we work together amongst all our members of different size and different type of expertise in order to elaborate a global recovery plan where our smart grids could be one of the pillars of this energy transition, which again means development, job creation, employment, innovation, exportation, international business as well. But we were very much concerned to propose concrete actions and measures. Of course, they have to be sustained also by regulatory change. As you know, all over the world, energy is a political matter, political sector, sustained by a lot of regulation. And if we want to develop these pillars, we need also some regulatory support and changing. It's also a question of behaviors, of, let's say, cultural change. How can we promote a more sustainable society through communities, and how we can spread the leadership of our smart grid technologies abroad, meaning outside France, of course, but also outside Europe. So we are talking, let's say, of Asia for sure, especially Southeast Asia, of Latin America and Africa mainly, but of course also the US as well. Next slide. So I will not, of course, comment the 14 recommendations and the 30 actions, but just to show you the diversity and also the holistic nature of this recovery plan. We are deeply convinced that smart grids have to be at the heart of this recovery action and proposals. We are no more the last kilometer or the last mile of, let's say, the global energy system or infrastructure. We are the backbone of it. Nothing will happen without a deep and clear involvement of the grids and of the smart grids sector. So it's also a political message we want to convey, because people, including politicians, they know a lot about generation, they know a lot about supply. Sometimes they know very few about networks, especially distribution network. So we have to change that and be and not to be shy in order to convey our message. First level is its regulation, for sure. We need to free up energy, to change behavior in order to have a more sustainable society, to take care of the increase, quantitative increase, but also quality change regarding skills. The future of smart grids will apply for a change also in skills, a higher level of technology, more digital content of our skills and businesses. We have to prepare for that. So it's a huge change and huge transformation. Regarding the operational proposal we made, you have the list, and they are very consistent with the European and French plan I've just presented. Charging infrastructure for electric vehicles, it's key. That has to be connected also with the storage, because the grid and the vehicle can be, of course, a good tool for storage. We're talking about V2G, for example. Flexibility for industrial consumptions and clients, to use data and communication in order to develop residential demand control. We are just at the very start of this new business, and we are convinced as well that distributed DSO can play a role in that new area. Of course, it's a business for suppliers, but this DSO can and should play a part as well to develop new services for consumers and clients. So it's about decarbonization, flexibility, development, innovation, new solutions, use of data and use of storage, and of course, and it's the last proposal, multi-energy coupling, what we are calling in Europe the sector coupling, meaning that electricity should speak, if I may say, also to the heat sector, the cooling sector, the hydrogen and e-fuels, because our clients, of course, they need electricity, but they also need heat and e-fuels, and they are caring about hydrogen. So let's enlarge our vision and our proposal. Next slide, please. One key proposal will be based on the use of the smart metering system. In France, it's called Linky. It's green, and we made that choice 5 years ago, and it's deployed by Enedis. It's a large industrial plan we launched 5 years ago, and we are almost at the end of it, and on time and budget. I may say a bit less than the budget we figure out. So It's no more 5 billion euros. It's more. It's near 4 billion euros. So it's a large plan. At the end of this year, we will have installed and roll out 30 millions of units, and next year 35 millions. It's not a question of numbers of meters. It's a question of allowing people to master, meaning to diminish their energy bill and consumption. And also, we should point out the benefits for the grid in itself, because thanks to these smart meters, we are able to anticipate the defaults of our grid, especially the low voltage grid, to fix the problem without the clients having even the slight conscious of that it has been a problem. They don't know. We are fixing the problem, and combined with artificial intelligence, we are able to anticipate and to detect the shortcuts or the problems that will appear in the future. So it's a very powerful tool, and we are also answering with all the Smart Grid Association members to tender offer abroad, of course, in the Middle East, in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa, because a lot of DSO, they want to be part of this new technological adventure. I will, next slide, please. So it's not only about smart meters. What I want to share with you, but I know that you are really convinced, I'm sure that you are convinced of that, it's that the grid, of course, it's a physical infrastructure, but it's becoming more and more a digital infrastructure. In fact, we have two networks to take care of, and you can see the figures and numbers on the slide. It's about telecom and the link between electricity and IT and telecom. It's becoming more and more important. So you will see, of course, at the right of the slides, it's the end of the value chain and the Linky smart meters. But it is possible because before that, we put on the grid, on our structure, a lot of IoT. In fact, it's IoT devices. They are connected, they are producing and sending data, and they are receiving data as well. So the smart grid technology is key, and to deliver this energy transition, and it's based on, of course, observability and automation. A lot of what we are calling hypervision or supervision, and of course, a lot of maintenance of telecom infrastructure as well. Next slide, please. So, as a conclusion, and I try to be quick. Maybe we can take some questions. Our belief, our thinking, our message, and it's a very clear message. It's that the future of energy is electric. Of course, it's about consuming less energy, but it's mainly about consuming a greener energy. So it's about the energy mix, for sure, but it's also based on the ability of smart grid technologies to be the backbone, or if you may say the nervous system, you can choose your image, of power grids and ecological transitions. We have also a key role to play in post-COVID economic recovery plan, because we are infrastructures, meaning deployed all over a country like France, or all over a larger perimeter like Europe, or a huge country like the US. If we are able to focus on greener economy and to provide new solutions to our clients and customers, of course, the residential one, but also the industrial ones and the communities. That will help us to take tremendous opportunities in terms of jobs creation and business growth abroad as well, for the benefit of the whole electric industry sector, including power, industrial, transport, and building sectors. As you may know, these sectors, transport and buildings, they are the main responsible for CO2 emission. So that's why we need to focus our solutions, our actions on these types, these two types of activities. So we are really pleased within Think Smart Grids Association, within Enedis as well, but with my colleagues also for other companies, equipment companies as well, and startup as well. We are working together into innovation platforms. We are very keen to exchange experience with the US peers and counterparts, like we are doing, for example, in the Las Vegas event in the past years. We took part to forums and business meetings in order to exchange views and return on experience. So I was really happy to share this vision with you, and I hope that in the next months we will be able to meet, not just behind a screen, but let's say in person, in a physical room, if I may say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Marianne. We very much appreciate that overview. It sounds like you have some very exciting things ahead in France. And it's a lot of what you're talking about is very similar to what we talked about yesterday with some of our US utility executives. Let me ask a fairly quick clarifying question. The recovery investments that France is making, you showed $9 billion or 9 billion euros, I'm sorry, focused on energy. How much of that do you think will be focused on the smart grid vision that you were just talking about?
It's hard to thank you for this question, Steve. It's hard to be said because the recovery plan is not divided in two sectors. It's
Sure.
taking more transversal actions, like energy efficiency, like hydrogen, but I think let's say 10% to 20% could benefit to the grid if we are able to demonstrate that the grid is also the answer to the issue that this recovery plan is tackling. So it's also on our shoulders to convince people that we are part of the solution and not only let's say a classical infrastructure in a classical way.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I assume there may be some of our audience that will want to get in touch with you or your team, and I assume that's good with you if we forward some additional questions that might come from the audience or interest in what you're doing in France. And just so you know, I have circulated the Think Grids report with our membership already. So we look forward to additional collaboration with all of your team and others that are involved in what's going on there in France. So thank you very much. And we're going to transition now into our next session.